Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for the fourth week of Food for Thought, which will focus on gender and food production. Leading this week is Peace Nakitto in Uganda. Thank you to everyone who was able to make it to last week's live session. I'll just remind you that previous sessions are available to catch up on or rewatch if you would like, as well as additional reading to learn more about each topic. Peace Nakitto is a gender and nutrition advisor working with communities in Uganda. This week, she's going to share with you all about the gender gap in agriculture in Africa, why gender equality is important when it comes to food production, the impacts of climate change, and what needs to happen in order to make improvements. Before we hear from Peace, we're going to play a video that we made some years ago to show you just some of the reasons why it's important to support women who are working in food production in Africa. Enjoy the session, and I'll see you next week.
Welcome everyone to our session on gender and food production. My name is Peace Nakitto. I work with Help Africa, the Uganda mission, as the nutrition and gender advisor. We hope you'll enjoy our session. Thank you. Okay, you're very welcome to our session where we're going to look about the gender, how gender is related to food production, and we are looking at Africa in general and how Help Africa is trying to level that ground, especially in the area of gender inequality within the agriculture sector. So what are some of the opportunities that we have for the women farmers? It's very clear that over 80% of the population of the women is composing or making up the fraction in the agriculture sector. However, when we look at the issues, the challenges that they face, there's pronounced gender inequality, which is a very major obstacle to improving their outcomes. So as Help Africa, we are working to level that field with various interventions. If we are to look at the context of Uganda, for a long time now, agriculture sector has formed the backbone of our economy, employing over 80% of the rural population. And out of these, we have about 64% of those in the working population. And also it's very clear that agriculture is also comprised of majorly the women compared to the male counterparts. Again, maybe just a brief introduction. I'm a gender enthusiast. I'm a trained nutritionist, and these are some of my favorite quotes. Both women and men should feel free to be strong. It's time that we all perceive gender on a spectrum, not as two opposing sets of ideas. And then it is no country's destiny to be poor. I like that quote very much. It relates to where I come from. When we look at what Irish Aid is doing, gender equality, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 5, is one of our 4 priorities. And as we look at the focus here, we recognize that gender is a fundamental human right and is a key to achieving all the 2030 SDGs. And we look at the funding that comes from Ireland, the Overseas Development Assistance funding. It's helping Self-Help Africa work with various women farmers across. I want us to look at what are the existing gender gaps in agriculture. It's very prevalent that gender-based inequalities exist. When we look at the gender norms, the roles, the relations, they often shape women's farmers' agency and autonomy. And it's very clear that a gender gap is found for many assets. Take an example of productive assets like land, livestock. There's clear gender divide when you look at agricultural inputs, productive resources, and various opportunities within the agriculture sector. And also when we look at the women's work burden, often it limits their opportunities to participate fully and benefit from climate smart agriculture initiatives. And also it's very clear that there is difficulty in accessing higher value markets for the women. And oftentimes they lack the cash income, which would therefore translate into, lower use of contemporary farm technologies because they often cannot afford them. Again, we are seeing that there are more male-headed households that use improved agricultural technology compared to female-headed households. Then studies have already shown that gender differences exist in planting of high-value crops. If you look at Malawi, where Self-Help Africa works, it's very clear that 28% of that exists in the differences between men and women, planting high-value crops. When you look at Uganda, it's also significant, 13%. And also we are seeing that when it comes to agricultural innovations and knowledge levels, there's significant gender divide. Again, we are seeing that women typically have land of poorer quality and quantity compared to men. And then also it's also clear that as we know, land plays a role in influencing crop choice. Therefore, we are seeing that it implicates on the scale of farming for the women, how far they can engage. This is really a limiting factor for them. And also we are seeing that potentially there are limited sources of information among women compared to men. If I take an example of phone access, it's very clear that women often don't have access to phones, which would therefore provide the media where they would attain some of this information that they need compared to men. So as Self-Help Africa, we have already plans and we're already doing some of these gender transformative approaches and interventions. And we are saying, what can we do about it? It is very clear that the world cannot eliminate hunger without closing the gender gap in agriculture. We need to ensure that the men and women have improved access to climate information, because that is crucial for making the transition that we want to see in climate smart agriculture, that would therefore make them more resilient and often adapt to the variabilities in the climate changes. Again, we are seeing that equitable access to agricultural inputs, including all the fertilizers, the machinery, we need to have that addressed to make women and men both productive and efficient as we desire. I want to show you a clip that would help us understand where this magnitude is. Okay, I want us to look at these visuals and try to see what the impact would be if we close the gap between men and women within the agriculture sector. it's very clear that when we close the gap, issues to do with market access, information access, all this technology equitability between men and women, we can greatly improve, that gap that exists. And in turn, we can greatly improve the yields and as well close, the hunger and all that, related issues within the agriculture and food production section. Welcome back to our session once again. I hope you learned something from that video. It's very clear that the gap exists in how, various assets, various inputs, various markets, related information, and all these various agriculture related inputs. Okay, again, we need to see that there's improvement of women's economic security and access to time-saving equipment and services. If women have equitable share of all this space of economic security, then they can be empowered to even produce better and be, having better harvest and feed their families and be more empowered. Then again, we are seeing that if we can strengthen women's land rights with land tenure security. I can give you an example of where I come from. Traditionally, women or girls, young girls, could not inherit their father's property and things to do with that. Again, we are seeing that again lessens their power to have all these decisions and have even enough agriculture, related harvest that they would want to realize, similar to what their male counterparts in that same household would have access to. Again, we are seeing that if we can have more gender responsive agriculture extension services, that would be very paramount on our side. Again, we are saying if we can promote gender awareness in our extension work, because this has proven to be very promising in some African countries, including Uganda, where I come from. Again, we are saying if we can strengthen gender aware policy support, this is really multi-sectorial at various levels, ensuring that people are more gender aware than being gender blind, and again, contributing to advocacy, talk about 16 days of gender activism and that kind of initiative. Again, we are seeing that if we can scale gender transformative projects such that women and men participate fully, that would be very, very good. And we are seeing that we can also pay attention to the interplay between households, institutions, and markets, and how they affect women's status. If you look at what our family life model, that our gender transformation model that we use, it looks at a family as a heterogeneous unit. We are aware that families, it's a complex unit. And if we don't promote harmony there, oftentimes the woman's self-worth is not felt. And we realize that if we promote the family life, approach, men are more aware of what to do. They respect their women better. And also there is equal decision-making power in that household, less gender-based violence and things to do with that. Again, we are aware that if you take account of the stronghold that social norms have on various communities and individuals, it is very, very good. How we do that is we involve the local authorities in ensuring that all these gender transformative approaches are people-driven, and again, they are locally owned by the communities where we work. As we do that, again, we are saying if we can elevate women's agency such that their confidence, their self-worth, their leadership skills are enhanced, that would be the way to go, so that they can feel that they are benefiting from the agriculture sector in a whole. Again, we are saying that if we can work through community change agents, we've seen this work very well, whereby we bring men on board as well as women, such that they are more, actively participating in, driving this change on ground in the communities where we serve. We don't only focus on the women, but again, we are saying if we can use men as change agents, that would be very good for localized gender smart solutions. Time and again, we emphasize partnerships, collaborations within the gender space, such that whatever gain is obtained within that community, there is more sustainable efforts at the end of the projects we have and the end of whatever funding that we have. Again, when you talk about agriculture, you cannot forget to talk about climate, really. And it's very clear that men and women experience the impacts of climate change differently. Again, we are seeing that evidence has already shown that investing in girls and women is a primary driver in climate action. And of course, we are seeing if it's inclusive and leaves no one behind, that would be the better way to do it as much as possible.
Authorities now say that the death toll could be as high as 40,000 people.
Again, we know that women and girls are pivotal to addressing global warming successfully. As Help Africa, as an example, we already have our campaign. We are planting 1 million trees, and we are seeing that most of our women farmers are at the front line of this all over Africa and even in Ireland. Again, we know that when women are put at the leadership position, they can put climate solutions at the forefront very well. Again, we know that if they are given the agency over family planning, they could influence the global quest to conquer climate change. As we know, we are trying to battle with the overly populated world. And of course, if we are able to reduce that through family planning, that would be the way to go. If women have that power really to decide, okay, I can take this family planning method, I can choose not to take, that would be the way to go to see this happen. Again, we are saying, why does gender make a difference? Why are we talking about gender during this time? And why are we relating it to food production? Evidence has already shown that agriculture is becoming feminized in many countries as women make really contributing roles, as we know. Again, we are noticing that women farmers are as efficient as men farmers, of course, controlling for other characteristics. And then we know that for agricultural programs to be very effective, they must integrate gender. Women make the decisions at households, what to cook, what to plant and things like that. If that can happen, that would be the best way to do it. Again, we are seeing that attention to gender facilitates achievement of economic and social objectives. It has been very well documented that agricultural extension programs that have been targeted to women-led farmers have the ability to progress significantly. And in Uganda, there was a study in 2018 that documented that there was already a shift when women were empowered. They were seen to shift from subsistence farming to commercialized farming. And that is part of our Vision 2040 to see that there's commercialized agriculture all over the country. Again, we are seeing that in most of our projects, Uganda inclusive, placing women in extension positions has truly enhanced their knowledge base, and they are able to adopt to sustainable land management techniques, which is the way to go as we address hunger. Again, why we are saying that gender makes a difference is that it is clear that if you invest in a woman, you're investing for the community and probably the nation at large. Studies have already shown that women who have been empowered and who have, that financial independence, they are able to contribute 90% of their income back to their families, therefore enabling their families to thrive better and to have better welfare compared to 35% for men. Again, we know that strengthening the role of women in agriculture could ultimately boost agricultural productivity and help reduce hunger. Please look back at the video that we projected already. That really relates to what I'm speaking now. Again, we know that addressing gender inequality overall is essential to achieving our sustainable agriculture initiatives across Africa. Thank you for listening, and happy to hear from you once again. In case of any questions, you're very welcome. Thank you.